day. We have unions speaking. Can't be a bad day if you have unions speaking. Okay, my name is Alberta Hemsley. I'm with this organization called the Greater Cincinnati Democrats. And Katie Hoffman is another one. She does all of our programming. Thank you.
Okay.
She gets all of our great speakers, which is a wonderful thing. I just get up here and get the microphone. Sorry about that. And then we have some other wonderful people that we need to acknowledge. One of them is my brother, Stan, with the video. He's wearing an Aloha 50 shirt that I brought back from Hawaii when I went to Hawaii last fall to celebrate the 50th reunion of my Peace Corps training group on the island of Hawaii.
All I got was the
A whole bunch of
shirt.
them stayed on the island, and I'm in contact with some people who are facing lava flows. Thank you very much. Okay, a lot of Peace Corps went back to Hawaii. Yes.
I'm substituting for Peter Rose, our fearless newsletter correspondent, publisher person. Peter's in Sorrento, Italy. Sad. So if you have something you want in the newsletter as an announcement, write it down legibly and give it to me, please. Thank you.
There we go. That's Ellen with the hat. Okay, we're taking the one with the microphone right now is David Hughes, and he has a couple of announcements. He's our Walder Park person.
Well, big plant sale at Warder Nursery on Warder Avenue in North Bend. It'll be a lot of fun and a great way to go to a park and take a walk with your dog or whoever. This Saturday, 9 to 10, Warder Nursery.
Get some nice plants at very good prices. Now, that Warder Park was originally founded to make the trees to grow the beginning trees for all of the parks all over the city. And it was
That's
then,
correct.
Yeah, and it was then turned into a park, and it has a wonderful collection of great trees there. Are you here?
On the schedule that you see, Elizabeth Holzapfel was scheduled for June 12th, but she found that she's going to be out of town. So I've now had 3 speakers for that date, and I've had 3 cancellations for that date. So June 12th is still moving on it, but I do have a plan in place. So make sure you know that is the week of the Poor People's Campaign that is focusing on educational justice. And so we've talked about that, but we will have something specifically about educational justice. And secondly, today at 5:30 at Hyatt Park, which is right across the street from the public library, there's going to be a rally by the West End Collaborative of No FC in the West End. This morning at City Council, Chris Seelbach was the deciding vote that the ordinance is no longer considered emergency. That means a petition, 6,000 signatures on petitions in the next 30 days can send this to referendum where the people of Cincinnati get to decide whether the $34 million that they want to give away that needs to go to our neighborhoods rather than to corporate millionaires, that will be on the ballot in November. So petitions will be handed out this afternoon at 5:30 at Hyatt Park. I will have petitions next week, and people who live in the city of Cincinnati, in other words, vote for these city council people, that will be there. So anybody who would like to join us, please do so.
Where is this park?
Hyatt Park is right there kind of on Garfield Place, right across from the public library. 8th Street. 5:30 to 7:30 is that rally. And then, they're passing out petitions, that's right. No, can't be in the newsletter, it's today.
Oh dear. I'm here to find out what's going on in your city. Go ahead, William.
Just very quickly, if you get a chance and if it matters to you, please thank the ownership here for putting out some tofu today. I know a lot of people appreciated that. I know I do. Thank you.
Ellen, want to hold up your plate, please? hold up your plate. Now, there were people who don't like styrofoam, and the way to make your objections known, but to eat anyway, is to bring your own dish. Now, that's a covered dish that she can take home, which is a very nice thing to think about. So those kinds of things are available. We're trying to deal with the environment and still have a meeting here, so let's make it happen. Yes?
I do have an announcement that mealy worms eat styrofoam and, but no harmful effects to them. So I think we have a solution for our environment for styrofoam. Well, you can eat mealy worms too. That was on Science Friday on NPR, so it was a legitimate source. Wow.
Yum, yum, yum.
Just one other announcement. Saturday is the Day to Wear Orange. There's a rally down in Washington Park, and there's hats back there. It's supporting the students who are trying to change the gun culture in this country. It starts at 1 o'clock in Washington Park. Thank you.
I bought a hat here last week and then went to the 6 o'clock on Friday walk, and I had lots of nice pictures of great signs for no guns, and some of them just were very heartfelt. Just want you to know. And I met one person there who's running for office, and I said, you need to come to our meeting, and he came. So I'm going to give the microphone to him for just a second before we get other people.
Hi, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Clayton Adams. I am running for it's State House District 30. I'm running against Bill Seitz on the west side. Thank you. It's Green Township, Delhi, West Price Hill, and Cheviot. So we're doing our best. You know, it's an uphill battle. It's a big name, but we're getting after it. So my job, I'm a special education teacher at Aiken High School. And the biggest concern of mine in this state, one of the big issues I'm worried about is charter schools. I think the charter school movement has been an attack on unions, and it's been an attack on public education. So the teachers and the students, it's negatively affecting them, and that's one of the big issues that I'm campaigning upon, as well as gun regulation. That's another issue I'm very passionate about, and that's where I met Alberta the other day. So thank you so much for letting me introduce myself to you guys.
What's your name?
Clayton Adams.
Hi, my name is Ginger Bach. I am running for judge in the 1st District Court of Appeals in Hamilton County. As some of you may know and some of you may not, there are 6 seats in the Court of Appeals, and this year there are 4 races. So the voters get the opportunity to shape how the courts are going to look. I recently won my primary by 47 percentage points. And I won really for 2 reasons. First of all, I work really hard. But secondly, I have gotten so much support from so many of the people in this room, and I just want to give a huge thank you to each and every one of you who voted for me, who supported for me, who volunteered. I appreciate it so much. And in November, we've got a very tough opponent, and with your help, I know that I can win, and I know that we can change the way our courts look. Thank you very much.
Thank you for running Ginger. Dr. Laura.
I want to thank everybody for their comments on my talk last week. A number of you have inquired about my book. I brought several copies, and so if you really desire a copy of Pink Dawn Rising, I have
There
that
you go,
with me.
folks.
It is my autobiography, and that is my book plug.
There you go. Here we go.
Following up on Ginger, there's Mark Godsey, who is the Innocence Project that you see just came out with a book that is really exposes the criminality in our criminal justice system, how awful it is. I just read it, and you might want to check that out. It's incredible. Mark Godsey, it's called Blind Justice.
Well, before he sits down, I want to have another judge, Gordon. Baradon.
Hi, my name's Tom Baradon. I'm running for Common Pleas Judge. I've come down and spoken to the group before. Just want to echo what Ginger said. Really appreciate everyone's support. We're running for different courts, but we're both running as endorsed Democrats. It was very heartening on election night to see how well we had done compared to our Republican opponents. We've done better than we'd ever done before. We actually beat them, which was incredible, and the reason why is because of your grassroots support. So thank you so much for that.
All right.
Karen.
So I'm Karen Galloway, and we represent Move to Amend, which is the 28th Amendment to get big money out of politics.
Please.
For those of you who have not heard of us before. So I'm putting in an appeal. I learned last week that we have several members here who are also members of First Church. And after the meeting, thank you, and after the meeting last week, we stopped by First Church and followed up with a request to hold a meeting there once a month. We haven't been holding regular monthly meetings, but we're going to start. And we do need a sponsor. So they have our request. If you're interested and want to support us, we could use some support. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Karen. Other announcements? There we go.
I just wanted to say something about something that we went to yesterday, the parade, for Memorial Day parade in Mason, and my sister and I went for AFTAB, and
There you go.
there were about, what?
I'd say 50 to 60.
50 to 60 people for AFTAB, and about 5 for Steve Shepard.
Keep making us look good.
Okay, just to follow up on that, I'm Christy. I was here last week talking about our group, the Ohioans for Economic Opportunity, also known as the Shabbat Habit.
Break the Shabbat.
Break the Shabbat Habit. We are working to educate Ohioans in District 1 about the bad habits that Steve Shabbat has of voting for things like the tax bill and against your health care. So we have an event tomorrow. It's hard to track him down, you know. Any of you ever see him around the district? Like you said, he wasn't there, right?
No, it was not, but after was.
Yeah.
They don't want to show up.
So he is making an appearance tomorrow, not an appearance, he's going to a meeting at Miami Valley Gaming Association at 9 in the morning. And so we're going to show up there, as many of us as we can gather in our yellow shirts, and see if we can get his attention and maybe have a word about those votes of his. So would love to have you join us. 9 o'clock, Miami Valley Gaming, which is, you know, north of here.
I was a teacher at Macaulay for many, many years, and we had Steve Shabbat come quite a few times, and he would tell the students, they would ask him, well, do you want to raise the minimum wage? And he said to them, no, as a matter of fact, I don't believe in the minimum wage. And then these girls said, oh, he was so nice. I never got that. I had to try to be as nonpartisan as possible, but it was just ridiculous.
Hi, I'm Judy. I'm working with Christy. One thing we are looking for is stories about people in Cincinnati area, primarily District 1, with healthcare stories or tax stories. One of the things that we're trying to do is just really get the message out through real stories about real people that we're going to be featuring in the media to continue to hold Shabbat accountable for what, or any of our elected officials accountable, for their votes. So if you know of any stories, people who would be willing to talk to us, is it on the Shabbat Habit website or the Ohio for Economic?
It's on the
Ohioans for Economic Opportunity website, or just let us know. That would be incredibly helpful.
Marlene, you have a story. What district are you in?
District 1.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm connecting you right now. There you go.
Hold that, Marlene. Okay.
Her husband has a kidney issue where he's had a kidney transplant, and it's very expensive, and they're wanting to take away their health care. That's not good. Okay. If we're not anymore, I do want to, there we go. Here we go with
Robert.
Robert. He wants to be called Juggy in his ear.
That's all right. Okay. The Coke dinner. Let's talk about the Coke dinner. It's a very important event.
If you have spare $150, there's a Coke dinner.
Well, it's a good cause. I hear they got a good band there.
Your band, right? Yeah. You want to hear his band, pay $150 and support politics. That's how it works. I do want to mention that we have a special young Democrats table here today. Deb, okay, there goes Sid, our youngest Democrat. There is our future folks. But not only Sid, we have Sophie and Sam here today. Sophie is 5. Want to wave, Sophie?
Hi, Sophie. Hi, Sam.
And Sam is 9. Look, isn't he gorgeous? There is our future folks. These are the people that we're working for. Yeah, but he got that very contemplative look. I'll bet he's very smart. Any other announcements? Without further ado, I have found my first real use of LinkedIn this week, looking up our speaker for today. Peter McLinden, Esquire. He's known as Pete. He's the Executive Secretary Treasurer of Cincinnati's AFL-CIO Labor Council. He's a current member of the Board of Directors of Ohio Bureau's Worker Compensation. And and in summary, he's an experienced labor and employment attorney who offers a powerful combination of legal skill combined with management and leadership. And here we have Pete McLinden.
Thank you very much. And I want to one up my sister. I was at the Lebanon parade with my 3 kids. Shabbat, not only did he not show up, no one walked for him. And AFTAB had about 20. And it was really good because AFTAB was walking around shaking hands and people looked and said, oh, so that's AFTAB. So it was really, really powerful. Thank you for walking on Saturday. Oh, I'm sorry, right there? Okay. Again, my name is Pete McLinden. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO. I've been in this position for roughly about going on 4 years. Prior to that, I served as Regional Director of AFSCME Council 8, the building right across the parking lot here. I was there for about 10 years, and then for 9 years prior to that, I worked as a labor attorney for Ohio Council 8 in Columbus. So, thank you for all being here today. I just want to introduce a couple of my co-workers who are here also. We got Paul Bradenbach. He's our labor community organizer. And Brian Griffin is our Director of Communications. So, I want to start off with, how many of you in the audience are members of the union? Excellent, okay. Okay. How many of you have family members who are members of the union or are members of the union? Okay. Anybody have friends or neighbors that are church members who are members of the union? All right, look around. I mean, it's a big crowd. I mean, nationally, we still represent over 13 million workers with the national AFL-CIO. But a lot of people don't understand because it's such a diverse group. It's sort of like the Democratic Party, right? We have so many diverse groups, so many different workers, so many different industries. But the National AFL-CIO is basically a democratically governed federation of 55 unions, covering anywhere from white collar to blue collar, covering the public sector and private sector. It's a huge, huge organization. And it breaks down, each state has its own state federation. Right? So we have Ohio AFL-CIO. And then it breaks down further there to local labor councils. So in Ohio, we have 26 local labor councils. Cincinnati covers 4 counties in Southwest Ohio. In our region, we cover about 110 union affiliates, and it covers over 30,000 union members and their families. Now, the AFL-CIO, nationally, state, and locally, we serve generally 2 purposes. First, we work together to build and strengthen and support the rights of all working people. And second, we work to promote the economic and social justice for all working people. We also work with several constituency groups within the AFL-CIO, such as the A. Philip Randolph Institute, the Coalition for Black Trade Unionists, the Coalition of Labor Union Women, and also Pride at Work, which is our LGBT reach out. We also partner with a lot of local groups and state groups. As many of you know, Alliance for the Retired Americans, Cincinnati Interfaith Worker Center, which Paul is a member of, Jobs for Justice, Solidarity Center, Working America, and United Way of Greater Cincinnati. And not only to mention Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition also. So we're very active, but overall, unions are about workers' freedoms, workers' rights. The right to organize, the right to join and speak collectively together. Because we all know we have a collective voice, we're more powerful than we are as individuals. And this is nothing new. This is the history of America, celebrating these rights. Because we all share the same issues and promote the same issues. We all want fair and equal pay, especially with keeping up the cost of living. We all want affordable health care and health insurance. We all want non-discrimination and fair work schedules in the workplace, safe working conditions, good public schools, and affordable higher education, and retirement security, and retirement with dignity. And there's a difference. And many of you know, you saved up all your life. You basically depend on Social Security. You depend on your investments. And right now, with what we see at the national government trying to privatize Medicare, privatize Social Security, I mean, it's an attack on retirees and their dignity. So these are the issues we promote. And these are the same things that many Democrats feel strongly about too. And the proof of unions around the world and in this country is in the history. So post-World War II, we saw the rise of the middle class in America because there was a collective sharing of the prosperity with workers and with their families. And unfortunately, since the early 1980s, union membership, as it's declined because of the frequent attacks from the other side, we've also seen a decline in the middle class. We've almost gone to an individualistic kind of centered society, and we forgot about our collective nature as a country. And the attacks on working families and unions, you see this every day now. I mean, the funding and privatization of public schools, unregulated charters in Ohio, what Betsy DeVos is doing at the national level, and getting away with it. And it's always a promise. Things are going to get better, you just have to do things our way. They told us that 20 years ago with charters. All we got to do is bring in charters. No, we said, well, why don't you fix the funding system for public education in Ohio? It's been ruled 3 or 4 times by the Supreme Court to be unconstitutional. No, if you bring in charters, it'll bring in competition and it'll work. And we've seen over the last 15, 20 years, it hasn't worked. It's only been a way for private corporations to come in the state and steal the money. Unregulated. And now the Republicans are left holding the bag on that. The so-called right to work, which we now see the fight with the Janus case at the Supreme Court level, which is going to nationalize right to work for public sector unions all across the country. And basically, this is under a guise of freedom. Basically, someone says, well, I don't want to pay union dues. I don't want to pay my fair share. The fair share fee law in Ohio in the country has been in existence for over 40 years. Basically saying, okay, you can't force you to join the union, but if you're going to enjoy the contract, the benefits, if you're going to enjoy representation of the contract, you should pay your fair share. So unions, you can't charge your political activities to this group, but this group, you can't expect to get a free ride on the backs of people who are paying for it. And that basically is fundamentally what Janus is going to do. The funding and privatization of the Veterans Affairs, Veterans Affairs and the hospitals. I mean, many of you probably already seen the tweet that President Trump put out yesterday, praising himself, praising veterans. It was disgusting because finally some people were saying, this was not a happy day. I mean, the one woman tweeted, I lost my son in 2007 in the Iraq War, and you're telling me I should be happy today? It makes no sense. I mean, it's fundamentally gross, but the VA system isn't where it is because it happened overnight. It was constant defunding, the constant not hiring enough workers. I mean, it's a typical Republican strategy, and if you're a Republican, I apologize. It's a typical Republican strategy. Strangle it, make it not work, and then come up with a solution and say, here's my solution. right? Defund it, deregulate it, de-workerize it, and then all of a sudden say, okay, now my system, here's how we're gonna fix it. I mean, could you imagine, going back to Social Security and Medicare, if we would have privatized that as President George W. Bush wanted to do? And then we saw what happened in 2007, 2008. It would have been a disaster. Social Security and Medicare is the safety net for all people and should never be privatized. What we've seen with unfair trade agreements and the loss of jobs to other countries. Again, another example of deregulation. This is the constant attack that you're going to see from the Koch brothers and all these other groups that basically want to maintain power. They don't like diversity. They don't like to share. They forgot about the the playground rule about sharing. They don't want to share. They want to keep it all themselves. I watched, not a big fan, my daughters are, of the Hunger Games. If you look at the Hunger Games, it's a society of haves and have-nots. Some people are rich and they get everything, and then most people are poor and working in the mines. And the sad thing is, my daughter's like, well, at least it's a movie. And I'm starting to think, this is almost reality. It is really becoming that, in a sense. And then the court decisions now are starting to come out. That's why it's very important to elect our judges, because the court decisions are not coming from the Supreme Court. Did you see the one or hear about the court case that came out last week? Basically telling Chipotle workers, well, you signed an arbitration clause, so therefore you lost your right to go to court as a collective group, as a class action. You can't even go as a group to arbitration, you have to go individually. It's going to make it almost impossible to police labor violations, wage theft, overtime violations, because now one individual is going to be able to go to court by themselves. Collectively, they had a stronger voice. But again, this is nothing new, this is nothing we should be surprised about, but we're going to see even worse court cases coming down the pike. So again, in 2018 and 2020, we have a huge challenge before us, the Democratic Party. But it's also a huge opportunity for us. If we want to create a future for our kids and our loved ones that we can be proud of, we've got to step up, because this is the opportunity. People are upset, people are not happy. They got a lot of promises in 2016, and they voted the way they did, and that's fine. But going forward, have they delivered on their promises? No. And actually, they're attacking you. We've got to be the voice, the Democratic Party, with labor. We've got to be the voice so they can get behind and believe us. And vote the right way so we have candidates we can hold accountable. Yes?
Only a microphone, does anyone have it, or I can talk loud?
I have a couple of things. Number one, is Richard Trump still the head of AFL-CIO?
Yes, he is.
Why don't we hear from him? Number two.
My boss at the high level, yes.
Okay, number two, it's the Democrats that we have to vote for, and not just Democrats. Because I know even Obama pushed charter schools. Who was the head of his education? It was no one who was fighting for public schools. So when you say vote Democrat, you have to watch out who you vote for. Okay? And I also want to know why Trumka is not doing anything. He should be leading labor, and he's not. As far as I'm concerned, I have to ask you, is he still head of the AFL-CIO? And I was a union member as a teacher, okay?
Well, thank you for your service. I will say this. President Trumka is very active. He's the leader of Labor 2018, which we've 6 key states we're focusing on to bring out labor, to win back, to fight back against the tide of right to work, especially in Missouri, in Virginia, North Carolina. We are reaching out to new constituencies. So President Trumka is doing a lot at the national level. He is making sure we have the resources we need at the state and local level. Second, you are exactly right about Democrats, especially in Cincinnati. You have a lot of people who say they're Democrat, but once you start talking to them, they don't sound like they're Democrats. So, which is interesting. On the other side, though, you have a lot of people who say, well, I'm a Republican. But then when you start talking about the issues, it's like, oh my God, I might be a Democrat. So yeah, I don't believe in party ideologies or labels. I believe in the issues, like the issues I talked about: fair wages, free or affordable health care, public education. I mean, these are the things that people want solutions for. And we've got to hold our local officials, whether it's the city council, commissioners, state representatives, and the national representatives. I mean, Shabbat is a prime example of a career politician who does nothing.
That collects money.
He collects money, gets a paycheck. He cares a lot about his health care, but he doesn't care about the health care of everyone else. He has public health care, but he doesn't want everyone else to have it. But I think as a party, though, this brings up one of the final points I want to make. We've got to stop dividing ourselves. We historically have always divided ourselves, whether it's guns, gays and homosexuals, whether it's union, non-union, God, religion, abortion, or right to choose. We always seem to divide ourselves, and it only helps the other side. The more they divide us, the less solidified we are, the less solidarity we have, and then collectively, the weaker we are. So, and they know we're coming. And we've seen great examples of that across, Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania, which was my sister's district. She said it was amazing, how he's bringing people together. The win we had for the senator in Alabama, the wins we've had in Virginia. People are upset. They want change. They want more balance in the government, and they're not seeing it. But, in Ohio, especially with our Labor 2018 kickoff we did 2 weeks ago, we're not relying on the blue wave. We will be the wave. So we can't wait for someone else to do it. Yes?
Yeah, so we hear all the time about how it was the power and wealth of unions that made Citizens United necessary. Okay, like the unions have the same kind of economic power that the Koch brothers have. But that's my way of responding. What's your way of responding to that issue?
Citizens United, I think, will go down as one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in this country's history. I think maybe we won't see it now, but it will go down in 20, 30 years.
Faster than that?
I hope it's faster than that, believe me. But, I always believe they all have money. They always want to spend it. We have boots on the ground, we have the community, but we need to activate them. We have to get them together. We have to collectively bring them together on the same issues instead of letting them be divided by the other side. Because the Koch brothers and their corporate friends and their strong lobby interests are always going to have money. They're going to throw money around. And now we're seeing, I was telling somebody earlier, now we're seeing that kind of dark money being thrown into the city council race. I mean, where's it going to stop from there? So, the whole idea, and I was telling everybody, was, they're using the system that was supposed to protect workers and protect voters, and they're using the rules against us. So let's change the rules. And if you don't want to change the rules, Shabbat or Winstrup, okay, then tell us why. But I do not believe Shabbat is unbeatable. I don't believe Winstrup's unbeatable. I mean, he's a doctor. He's done some honorable things. But I think as a congressman, I won't say that. As a congressman, I think he stinks. So, and he hasn't been challenged. That's why Jill is running a great campaign against him. I've always told my people above me in Columbus, if you put a little money into the 2nd District, it's winnable. He doesn't know how to run a campaign. He beat Mean Gene in the primary. He's never really had to run a primary. And I think Jill is going to give him a run for his money. I think Aftab's going to give Shabbat a run for his money. Because I think they become fat and complacent. Shabbat, where was he yesterday? I can tell you, he wasn't in Mason and wasn't in Lebanon. So. But any other questions about unions in general, or yes?
Just out of curiosity, so Kroger, union shop, but how strong is their union? Because they're doing all these things to, to automate checkout and do all the online ordering. So I'm wondering, how strong is their union? Because it seems like they're trying to phase out actual human labor.
Well, UFCW Local 75, they are a strong union. Local 75 covers from Toledo down to Louisville. But what they're facing is the same thing we faced in a lot of industries with automation. We're facing with Uber. And people are telling me Uber is going to be phased out within 5 to 10 years because all cars and trucks are going to be automated. So we've got to be able to adapt with those changes like other industries have. I mean, UAW is still around, even though they automated a lot of the factory jobs. The steelworkers are still around. And there's still a need for human labor to be represented. But we've got to be at the forefront of that, or technology will take over. And there are a lot of people at the national level talking about what's going to happen when you take away a lot of these jobs, that a lot of, you know, low income and working class families with maybe a high school education are depending on. Where do the people go? How do they feed their families? You know, it's great technology, but if it's not working for everybody, it can't just work for a few. Good question.
I've been wondering why some unions supported Trump.
Thank you. That's
Yes. If I have the answer to that question, I'll be running for president. No, I think there was a lot of dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party. And there was some dissatisfaction with Obama. You know, I was talking to a teacher friend of mine, and she said, well, look what Obama did when he was in office. Look what he did with the Department of Education, pushing charter schools. You know, if you look back, when we had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, right? 2008, I mean, everybody was smiling, everybody was going to parties, we're gonna change things. But then we tried to update the labor law because it hadn't been updated since 1935, and so let's make it fair and more, you know, adequate for the current, you know, day and age, right, technology. And we were told, well, labor, you just gotta wait, just wait. You gotta get past 2010, and then we'll get on your issue, because some of these blue dog Democrats, you know, they don't wanna run, you know, they're a little iffy. So what did we do? We waited, right? What happened in 2010? Republicans swept back in. And then we were left holding our hat. So I think once we get in power, once we win back the governorship with Governor Richard Cordray, you know, and Betty Sutton, we've got to do something with it. We've got to hold them accountable, and we've got to move. Too often, like, well, Obama got elected. Well, healthcare. Well, let's talk to their side. Let's be nice guys. The Democratic Party, we're always the nice people. Let's be nice. The other side is not nice. The other side is about power. What did they do? They delayed, and all of a sudden they said, we're going to take it back in 2010, and then, you know, we got it passed. But then it was severely limited by the new Republican legislature that came in. So I think if we take control and stick your neck out, Democrats, right? Take a stand on something, push something. I think people will start to believe more in the Democratic Party and the elected leaders. You know, the fact of the matter is, I think most people, they look at President Trump, and they see a person, well, like George Bush. He says what he means what he says. You know, he said he was going to do it, and he did it. Even though it's to the detriment of a lot of us, right? Whether it's pulling out of the Iran deal, whether it's pulling back the treaty agreements. I mean, he said what he was going to do, and he did it. Even if I don't agree with him, at least he did what he said he was going to do. I think a lot of our Democratic candidates, when they say they're going to do something, once they get in power, they've got to do it. Whether it's city council, whether it's a state representative, you've got to do it. I think sometimes they get elected and they start to feel a little too safe. Well, I don't want to rock the boat. Well, no. Go forward. What do you care about? You know, Sherrod Brown. You see Sherrod Brown sitting back saying, let's wait? No, Sherrod Brown is, let's do it now. Because even if you do it and you fail, at least people will say, they tried. But we got to have the right leaders that are going to push that. So, and I will say locally, we have a strong field of candidates, both for the judicial races, the state representatives. I think this is an excellent opportunity. Even with gerrymandered districts, we can still take back a lot of those seats. If we talk about the issues and not talk about what divides us. Yes?
This is a question. Do you think the history of unions and their corruption and coercion and all of that is still affecting why people don't want to join or their reluctance to join?
Well, I'll say, history of America, unions are no different than other organizations. And I always like to tell people, you'll see a lot more corruption on Wall Street with corporations than you do in the union. And yeah, we have some bad apples, and we have some mistakes that come up, but we're a democratic organization. We can vote out our leaders, we can vote in our leaders. You know, you can vote for contracts. You know, you can vote for your representatives, or you can vote them out. So, on the other side, though, with corporations, all the mistrusts and all the bad things we've seen, they're still around. So, but I think that sometimes the stigma of, well, I don't need a union because that's my grandfather's union, or that's my grandma's union. I don't need a union. You know, I think my generation, I'm 48, my generation almost got lost because we were told, you don't want a union job, you want to go to college. And, you know, well, now we see how unaffordable college is with the debt students are taking on, and they're coming out, and it's like you could have got an apprenticeship with building trades and be making twice what you're making without the student debt. it's about providing opportunities for young people to reimagine what unionism is all about. And I think with millennials, I think you're seeing a difference than what you're seeing with my generation. And that's good, it's promising. Yes?
How does AFL-CIO, Katie, someone else had the microphone.
Okay, I looked it up and 43% of the union vote went to Trump. I don't understand it. And my question is, what is the union doing to educate their own members about who cares about working people? And as she was mentioning, Trump, I watch MSNBC all the time. I never see him on. I think I saw him on right after Trump was elected, but I haven't seen hide nor hair of him. And other union leaders, I know they could get on those programs to start educating people about what Trump cares about. He doesn't care about working people.
Oh yeah, very true. So what we did after 2016, we kind of did a very long self-reflection of our unions, of our representation, and what the issues were. We found there was a disconnect between a lot of the unions and their members. You know, when you start talking about issues, workers stand up, they relate, they understand. When you start talking about the Democratic Party values, they start to think, well, I'm no better off. When Obama was president, I'm no better off. My debt is still high, my children have no future. They didn't see a lot of the economic gains that were being received by a few. Now, when we said, well, don't worry, you know, things are getting better and it's going to turn around, we just got to keep with the Democratic ticket, a lot of them said, well, let's try something different. And, you know, I was a big Hillary supporter, but they did
how much sexism there is.
They did a very good job weighing her down with a lot of baggage and trying to make the negativity of her, you know. I mean, it was almost like some kind of high school cliquish campaign, you know, where Trump would just call you a name or just badmouth you without giving you the opportunity. Yes, but everybody was shocked after that election. Nobody saw that coming. Now, after 2 years, you know, we see the results of that. And I think people want change, but they want change they don't believe in.
Well, they need to do a better job educating their own members.
And we are, believe me, we are doing that.
I'm sorry. My question was actually the same question, but I'm going to repeat it again.
Okay.
So what is the AFL-CIO doing to connect the dots for their memberships to the larger political issues so that they will vote more in keeping with the goals of the union organization?
Yeah. Again, the Labor 2018 program that we're promoting now is again, it's going to be door knocking, it's going to be workplace actions, it's going to be digital, which we've never had a very good digital plan. It's going to be a lot of workplace, like I said, workplace actions. The idea is issue-based. When you talk about the issues, wages, you talk about paid leave, family leave, you know, affordable health care. That's what gets people up and excited. That's what they want to hear. And I don't think they thought they were hearing that during the 2016 election. So, again, you know, we're all good Democrats, but not all workers are Democrats. We represent a lot of Republicans and we represent a lot of independents. But if you speak to the issues that's important to them, you're going to win them over. But you have to tie them with the issues, and then you have to tie the candidates to those issues. Where do they stand? That's how you can differentiate between Shabbat and AFTAB. Shabbat, you've been in office 20 years, and you're still against the minimum wage. AFTAB, what would you do? And then you can distinguish the candidates. Instead of saying, well, it's about abortion, right to choose, pro-life, you know, guns, NRA, you know. Unfortunately, there are some people that they're going to say, where do they stand on guns? Then I'm there. You know, we should not worry so much about them. We should more worry about the changeables, the people in the middle. So.
Lots of you are asking what unions are doing, and I will tell you what the American Federation of Teachers is doing in Cincinnati with our Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. They're coming in and doing training, and we're creating teams, snowflake teams that actually go out and do personal ask one-on-one with teachers in each and every building. Because once again, we had problems in the 2016 election. So in other words, so it's about the personal ask, sitting down, having the personal conversation, and realizing that we are more aligned than what we are separate. Just as Peter's saying, there are individual issues, and we all have our sway one way or the other on them. None of us are perfect. But to have a conversation with each other and respect where each other is, but still realize there are so many issues that align us rather than separate us.
Well, you really answered my question, which I think is unfortunate. So I wanted to know what the influence of pro-choice and anti-gun violence has on, what kind of influence that has on union members. And do you think that that was a deciding issue for the 43% that voted against, or that voted for Trump?
Well, I think of the 43%, there were a lot of people, I think, that fell into that. My religious beliefs, I want a Supreme Court justice that's going to vote in favor of pro-life. And I think that moved a lot of people, not just union members, but all people. The problem is, look what you got else with that. Yes, you did get Neil Gorsuch, but look what else you're getting. So, but I don't think that overall the NRA or guns, I think that moves some people. But again, when you start talking about raising a family on affordable income, opportunities for their children, education being affordable, benefits so I can have paid leave, so I can take my kids to the doctor and afford it. I think those are issues that a lot of people resonate strongly with. Whether they own a gun or not, or whether they support abortion or pro-life. I think if you talk about issues that bring us together rather than issues that divide us, I think you're going to bring a lot more people back into the party and back into the fold.
I want to face something that is very difficult to talk about, and I think it's very difficult for union members, past and present, to talk about, and it's the giant two elephants in the room, and those two elephants are racism and sexism. And I think that anybody that thinks that this election of the President Trump was about anything but those two issues is fooling themselves. I was born and bred in Michigan, union country. My father was a union member and hated and despised the union. I adored the union. I was the daughter. But he didn't believe in it because he thought that as long as you work well, your employer will treat you well. He's coming from poverty. And that kind of poverty often believes in that. Every single member that I went to school with, that I grew up with, were the majority of them union members, and the majority of them were racist through and through. And as for the sexism, I'm going to tell you, that topped the racism and its venom. And I was informed by my father when I was 14 years old that it was women like me that were destroying the country. Because, and listen to me, I was told that you are the cause of the failure of America because you are going out there and trying to take jobs that belong to men. I was no exception. Everybody that I went to school with that was female got the same story. I knew that Trump was going to take Michigan. Although several people told me, Michigan's always going to vote. I said, honey, they've got their man now. They've got the guy that is saying what they always secretly believed and said behind closed doors, but they didn't trumpet it out loud. And I am sick at heart about that because I think that we have got to face a fundamental issue in the unions. They're not all teachers. They're not all teachers. I came from unions of people that grew up eating dirt. My people literally ate dirt when they were growing up. I didn't have hot running water until I was 10 years old in my home. Let me tell you, every single one of those people voted for Trump, and by God, they'll vote for him again. Because he's saying what they want to hear. And let me tell you, when I went back there during voting days, you don't want to hear what they were saying about Hillary Clinton. you don't want to hear the depth of the misogyny. It is, and I sit back and say, so are we going to all run male candidates now? I look around and I look at NPR, I look at PBS, I look at females that were running in those positions, they're being replaced by males. And yes, I want to turn around and support good male candidates, but by God, I want some female candidates, and I want to know that the union is going to do something to push for equality of women, and to push for equality of all our brown
I totally agree with you, especially on the right, racism and sexism underlying a lot of the election. You were totally right. And we saw that coming. But I think with the newer generation, the younger people, I don't think that is true. So for example, if you look, for our Coke dinner, right, I wanted to make this about the Year of the Woman. I wanted to bring in strong candidates. Betty Sutton, our Lieutenant Governor candidate, is going to be our guest speaker. We also brought in Kathleen, thank you to Michelle Young. Michelle, you were here? She was here. Michelle Young, through her friendship, she's brought our headline speaker. It's going to be Kathleen Townsend-Kennedy. Because again, we want to preach not only diversity, but inclusion. So someone once told me, diversity is being invited to the dance of the party, and inclusion is being invited to the dance. And you're right, I have 3 young kids. I have a daughter who's 11, we think she's 18. I have a daughter who's 9, I have a son who's 5. And they're very politically active, not the 9-year-old so much, but we knock on doors. I take them to union meetings, I take them to trainings, but I believe in them, and I think if we work more with young people, we're going to do a better job. And I think there are going to be some people who are going to cross over because of the message that is old and antiquated from Trump. But we have to believe, and like she said, we have to do the ask. We have to talk to them, we have to listen to them. We started going all around Ohio asking workers, how did you vote and why did you vote? What motivated you, right? And again, they didn't feel like anybody was talking to them. If you talk to coal miners, they think Hillary had this big, anti-coal, and they're going to shut down the coal mines, right? And they believed it. And so it was economic security for them, right? We know that wasn't true, but the message got out, and once the message sunk in with the population you're talking about, it resonated. We've got to do a better job reaching out and explaining why our candidates are better candidates based on the issues.
I think one of the problems, one of the reasons Trump did so well is that there was a difference between identifying with the candidate and hearing issues. And people identify, and they look at power, they look at gold toilet seats, they look at, the TV show, and they go, I want that. And they skip right over what it takes to get anywhere near there. I worked with Acorn, the recently departed, lamented Acorn, and I used to drive people to the polls every time, all during the Bush years. And it was mostly poor African Americans. And where I was doing it in Roselawn, there were also some poor Jewish immigrants. And we weren't allowed to talk to people about how they were going to vote before they voted. And we didn't. I mean, I certainly didn't. But afterwards, after they voted, if they wanted to talk about it, they were welcome to. Almost every one of them voted for Bush. And when I would ask them why, there were 2 issues. He's going to protect the sanctity of the unborn and the sanctity of the family. And those are the only 2 issues they had. And I asked them, where did you learn that? And that answer was the same too. We learned it at our church. We learned it from our minister. We learned it from, and that's another issue. But this business of just 2 issues that they identified with and no understanding of the broader context of who represents you better is something we really have to address somehow.
Yes.
And find something for people to identify with.
Okay, he's got his hands way.
Hi, Pete, I'm Scott, and what I wanted to call our remembrance to is the last really healthy post-World War II year in the U.S. economy was 1968. That was a year when economists have gone back and studied, and there was a very high correlation that year between union membership throughout the United States in manufacturing and in construction work. Now, we can't prove there's a cause and effect condition, but if you look, when the economists graphed out the years between 1968 and now, every year that union membership went down more and more, the real earnings for the American middle class went down also. And now at this point, we're in much worse shape than ever before, and many of us are working 2 jobs to survive. And when the economists today talk about job growth, they're eliminating all of the people like myself. I used to make a 6-figure income working for the U.S. Department of Energy as a subcontractor until about 6 years ago, and then all of us were laid off at once. And so suddenly, when I was in my 60s, I wasn't as employable as I had been before. So I finally realized with our financial conditions, we had to file for bankruptcy just to survive and keep our house. And so many other people have been in that same situation. And the other issue is that many academic studies, peer-reviewed ones, show a very high relationship between union membership and safety in the workplace. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely correct.
One more. Last question.
May I just ask you, do unions have to stick with right-wing Democrats? Frankly, for myself, I think of Hillary as, you know, I mean, do you ever, I know it's difficult, but do you ever feel that you can hold back a little bit before you endorse the status quo? We've got to have a very different kind of government, such as Bernie Sanders represented. Now, whether he could have won, maybe he couldn't have. I'm not sure he couldn't, actually.
A lot of his issues became mainstream, didn't they?
Well, when it was too late. When it was too late. Don't come right out for the right-wing Democrats. At least hold back a little bit and look at the progressives.
I will say during that campaign, there were a lot of union support that I saw for Bernie.
Yeah.
I did. And, yes, unfortunately. Unfortunately. But again, I think if we talk to people about the issues and we get party stance, yes, we should have a fruitful primary. We should have debate. We should have discussion. We shouldn't just anoint somebody because of their name or because of their money or because of where they come from. So I agree with you on that question.
Yes,
Last question.
last and best. I'm listening to all the questions and all the explanations, and I have to agree that there was a lot of misogyny, a lot of racism. There's also LGBT bias, and I don't see the unions doing anything to protect LGBT workers against their fellow workers. And more than that, I see that apparently there is a rift between the thinking of union leaders who are very pro-Democratic Party because of the support unions get from the Democratic Party, which is not shared by the membership of the unions, who vote in a manner that is often pleasing to them, as it should be, but I don't see the union leadership doing a job in educating the membership on what is actually going on politically.
True, and what is in their best interest. That's the job, that's the challenge we have. It's an opportunity, but it's a challenge. We need to address what their issues are, and not just, and I'll say it's a geographical thing too. A lot of times we put a lot of our resources, just like the Democrats do, we put it into certain areas, urban core, or certain counties. But we leave other counties aside, whether it's Warren County, Butler County, Claremont County. There's a lot of Democrats who live in Warren County. I live in Warren County. And I remember for Senate Bill 5, my ex-wife criticized me. She said, the men in this neighborhood are going to start talking because the women keep coming to the door. Well, why would the women come to the door? Because they wanted to sign the SB 5 petition. So there are Democrats in Warren County. There are Democrats in these other counties. We cannot leave them behind. That's why I believe David Pepper's 88 county strategy is good. We need to reach out to workers and working families in all of the counties, not just a few. Regarding LGBT, I think you're right, we have to do more. And unfortunately, we're seeing more attacks. We're seeing more viciousness regarding LGBT community, as if you can't have rights or you can't celebrate your rights. But again, we have to have the right leaders who are going to be bold enough to take those kind of stances and stand up for your rights, just like anybody else's rights. So I agree with you on that.
And there we have it, the unions. Thank you for your unions. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience, but I have a couple more things to say. First, I want to introduce Preston. Preston, will you get up and tell us a little bit about the Amos Project?
Well, hello. Oh, that works really well. My name is Preston Charles III. I'm a representative of the Amos Project as a community organizer. We are an interfaith-based organization that's actually even heavily invested with the churches and the movements. And like I hear you all are very much understanding that the churches are a very strong political influence. And we're actually a group that takes criminal justice reforms not just to the churches, but to the streets and the masses. And we're currently wrapping up with the ballot initiative, which is changing the Ohio Constitution to reduce the F4, F5 felonies that were attached to drug offenses from the 1996 war on drugs, and reverting that back down to misdemeanors. We're only 500 signatures or so away for Hamilton County, and we are spread throughout the state, but I just feel very happy to hear such conscious voices, because I agree with all of what you were all saying. As a part of the housing crash and economy crash in 2012, racism and sexism is a very huge part in our society. And our organization tries to work along with other political entities in order to really fix these issues. Education is very important, but that union of different groups from different atmospheres. Don't leave out a county or a neighborhood or assume that people are not concerned. They just don't have somebody who has held their hand. I didn't know about these meetings until someone had brought me out. And now I come on my own volition. So thank you very much for your time. If you want to sign a petition or have questions, yes.
You have your petitions with you?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Stand at the door on the way out.
Yes.
Thank you. The reason we exist is to have everybody working together. We need to be working in one direction. And I think most of us know what that direction is. I have an announcement about another thing that's going on. This is a thing that I find odd for Central Cincinnati. Is an organization called Mouthpiece. And they are looking to promote private and individual friendships between Arabs and Jews. I personally know that we need to include Jews among the people who are feeling discriminated against, as well as the LGBTQ initial.
I educated you last week.
I know, they still don't get the initials straight, my goodness. We just need to all work together. I mean, I hate seeing that police car in front of my synagogue every time there are children in the synagogue. It really hurts me to see that kind of, is it racism when it's against white Jews? I mean, Okay, well, I have copies of this. If anybody's interested in this organization and their dinner that's going to be on June 7th on Thursday.
You'll find policemen posted in front of mosques as well.
Right, policemen in front of mosques. We don't need that. I do know, next week, we have a really interesting speaker coming. His name is Steve Driehaus. Some of you know his sister, Denise Driehaus, who's been elected to the county commissioner. He is starting, he just got back into the country. He's been a Peace Corps director, that's how I know him, in 2 different countries in Africa. He comes back with a very interesting perspective there, having lived in some Arab countries. And he and others have started an immigrant and refugee law center at Xavier University, and he's going to come next week and tell us about working with immigrants and refugees. So next week is going to be fabulous, so come back next week. He beat Shabbat once. Life changes, what can I tell you? We got to keep current, and we've got to keep the good people in office. He's one of the good people, and he's coming back to do good in our community, and that's what this organization is for. is introducing you to good things that are going on in the community, and I hope we're doing that. Okay, we need to finish off the food. Make sure that food gets all taken. Thank you very much for coming. You are a great group. Thank you, thank you, thank you.